Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff. The Brown University shooting, in which 2 students were killed and 9 others injured, has entered day number 6 with some new information. Not information I think that will really blow the case out of the water, but you never know when you're working these investigations what lead, what tip will blow the case out of the water and result in an arrest in this complex investigation. There's been calls during this investigation in regards to politics. There's been calls about incompetency by the investigators running this investigation. There's been a lot of people second guessing as to why certain investigative leads weren't pursued. For example, detaining all the witnesses after the shooting. That wasn't done. Now, good luck trying to get and find out who was in that lecture hall during the shooting. Uh, and then when you finally do, you're 6 days behind in getting statements from witnesses. And of course, the video. A campus like Brown University that apparently is a quarter mile square, not having enough video to have caught the shooter and if he in fact acted alone or if he did not, because right now they are putting out this picture of a person of interest, they're calling him. And we don't know because they really haven't been transparent when they release certain things. We don't know if this individual you see on the thumbnail right now on that screen is a witness, is he an accomplice, or is he nothing? Was he just walking near the alleged perpetrator, who is this man, during, before, and after the shooting? That's remains to be seen. However, the investigators are diligently putting this information out there, and they want the help. They badly want the help of the community because that's the only way this case is going to get solved. So, folks, if you're not subscribed yet, please, it'll help us subscribe, like, comment, and share. And also, I'd like to remind everybody this show, Police Off the Cuff, is sponsored by FanDuel on the Believe Network. So, folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones, hold on to your thoughts, hold on to your service dog. We're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. We're about to enter the Off the Cuff zone, the Police Off the Cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Many people who have been following this case have been screaming about incompetency, politics, and missed opportunities. And yesterday really was no different. When I saw the press conference yesterday, I'm really not all that impressed with this additional person of interest. We'll put him back up on the screen. No one, as far as we know, and we're not privy to all of the witnesses who have been interviewed. This is the first time we're hearing about a potential accomplice, if they can even call him that. This is the first time we're hearing about this man and going into the 6th day of this investigation. And as I said early on, and I repeat, these investigations are not easy, right? They're very difficult. And especially when the investigation started off with a mistake, with grabbing the wrong, and it's really not a mistake. They followed leads and it looked good and it didn't pan out. They had the wrong guy and they brought someone into custody who they later on wound up releasing. And that sort of makes everyone believe that the competency of this investigation, they don't have a lot of faith in it. I'll put it that way. This is a snippet from yesterday's press conference.
The most intense investigation going on right now in this nation. This morning, amid growing pressure to capture the suspect in the Brown University mass shooting, Providence police now asking for the public's help in identifying this individual, dressed in a jacket and hoodie, who officials say was in proximity to the person of interest around the time of the shooting.
So we want to make sure that we don't miss anything. And so that's why we're asking the public to help us.
Authorities also releasing this color coordinated map that shows the areas police have been searching. The green areas indicating the person of interest location before the shooting, and in red, where he was seen after.
We have 1,200 cameras located throughout the campus. We don't publish the locations of the cameras. That would give a map to somebody to evade detection on the cameras.
Facing scrutiny about the university's security systems, Brown writing in a statement Wednesday, "We will do a large-scale systematic security review of the entire campus."
That's called closing the barn door after the horse has run out. Okay, that's what that's called.
As the investigation enters its sixth day, members of the Providence community say they feel uneasy with the killer still on the loose.
It does get worrying then the longer it goes on.
While some students, including the friend of victim Mohammed Aziz Mirzakov, say security measures need to change.
I do think it would be a good idea for them to implement some stricter security measures to prevent something like this from happening again.
Now behind me, you see the more modern part of the building. That is the part of the building that has cameras. Directly in back of that is the older portion of the building that does not have as many cameras. That is where the shooting took place. Now, the Attorney General yesterday said he believes if the shooting happened in the more modern part of the building, the suspect would have been caught on camera and would have been arrested by now. Craig.
All right, Aaron McLaughlin there for us in Rhode Island.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. No one wants to hear excuses at this point, you know. And when you that head of security, whoever he was from the school, saying Brown University has 1,200 cameras, that's very good. How many have you canvassed? How many have you looked at? That's pathetic. Entering day 6, and we don't know. We just see where it's on the map. They showed us the green, which was where the perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, was before the shooting, and then the red was where he fled after, and it just abruptly ends. Does that mean there's no more cameras? Does that mean you haven't got to canvassing it? There is some incompetence here. There really is, and I've said it from the very beginning. One of the biggest mistakes they made, and I don't want to dwell on the mistakes because we want this to be successful. We want this person that did the shooting to be in custody. We want him arrested. We want him to answer for his crimes. But many things in this investigation smell of politics. Yes, smell of politics. When you have the mayor getting up and saying, there's no direct threat. How do you know? What do you know about security and policing? You look like a deer with the headlights on, you know? How could you make a statement like that? The perpetrator is not in custody. Can you swear to the community? Can you swear to the students that he's not going to come back for round 2? No, you can't. So stop making stupid statements like that, because what we want is competency, and we're not seeing a hell of a lot of it here. And there's many investigative resources that haven't been used. But one of the things I'd like to mention also, there was very poor crime scene management here. And what do I mean by that? Well, after this shooting, why were the students allowed to leave? And I've mentioned this before on the show. They should have secured all the students and tried to put them in separate rooms so they can't speak to each other. I know that's very difficult if there's 200 of them. And then get as many detectives as you have in there to interview them. Other investigative resources, other investigative steps that I don't see taken were, we have yet to see a sketch. There has not been a sketch. And you might say, well, there's photos of him. A sketch is different, all right? You need a sketch. And this person, who is the person of interest, they call Mr. Chubby here, with his mask on and his sort of 5'8". He looks like he's about 2 1/4, 220. And they think that he is the shooter. Why is there no sketch at this point? And we don't know. We're not privy to the tips they're getting in regards to this individual. But all of a sudden, they slapped a new person of interest on us with the picture that they released in the press conference yesterday of this man. And again, is he an accomplice to the shooter? Or is he just someone that happened to walk by when the shooter was in the vicinity? We don't know that. But going into the 6th day, well, yesterday was the 5th day, they slapped this photo on us of this individual. And they're not saying he's a suspect. They're saying, again, that term that I despise. He's a person of interest. Now, this is from Fox News, and they're questioning, they're questioning all the questions that we have as the public and also the media in regards to the messaging that Brown University is putting out in regards to the shooting. And the messaging is horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And we have James Gagliano, a retired FBI agent, as well as Stuart Kaplan, another retired FBI agent, talking about what's going on in this investigation right now.
Joining us now is James Gagliano, retired FBI supervisory special agent, along with Stuart Kaplan, former FBI special agent. Now, a lot of attention today was given to this second person caught on video.
The second person that you want to talk to, can you drill down at all on any interactions that you believe you may have had with the main person of interest? Do you believe he talked to him? How close was he to him? Any interactions? What can you tell?
We feel that we need to speak with them to find out because videos don't speak. If you think about it, I wish the video could speak, and then I'll have the answers that we need to, so that we can continue on this investigation. Again, I wish the videos could speak. We're trying to get those answers.
Okay. We wish the videos could speak. James, strange answer, but what are they looking for here?
Yeah, Laura, I share your confidence that they will find this guy. It's only been 4 days. It took 5 days to get Luigi Mangione, about 3 days to catch Tyler Robinson out in Utah. And you remember the Koberger murders out the Idaho kids? That took 6 weeks. I also share your feeling of it defies credulity how we can be so poor at messaging these days. I don't understand why we're not still treating this as a potential terror attack. If that happened, then the FBI would be in charge. You'd have one lead. The Providence Police Department.
Listen, I know James Gagliano. He's a smart guy. He's a former supervisory agent of the FBI. The FBI makes mistakes too, all right? And they shouldn't just take over murder investigations like the man on a white horse that just arrived. Because first of all, in big cities like New York, you don't even need the FBI because the NYPD detectives are that competent and that good. But the FBI, with their presence, brings all kinds of investigative toys, all kinds of resources. They have the ability to do something called geofencing, which many police departments don't have the ability to do, which is they're able to pull up cell phones and all kinds of laptops and computers being used in a GPS vicinity at a certain time. I don't know any police department that has that ability. The FBI does. The FBI also runs CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System. The FBI also has the ability to do investigative genetic genealogy. And I spoke yesterday with all the spent shells left on the scene. Potentially there could be DNA on the spent shells, and that could be a way that the perpetrator gets identified through an investigative genealogical tree being drawn up by the FBI. Let me go back to James Gagliano.
Laura, has only 500 sworn members. 500. It's a tiny campus, Brown. It's a quarter of a square mile by a quarter square mile. It's a postage stamp. But there are 800 security cameras on that campus. I can't understand why we don't have better video of this, and I don't understand, to your point, why we're holding press conferences not to put out any actionable information.
Stuart, they also apparently still don't know, which again is mind-boggling, but you're the expert. They don't know how long exactly the shooter was in the building. Is that odd?
Well, let me say
at this stage of the game?
Well,
Well, Laura, let me tell you what's odd. What is odd is when you have a police chief that is flanked by politicians from day one. When you go back to the first press conference and you see the political leaders basically hijacking a press conference where parents who are all over the United States concerned about their loved ones and their children and just the safety of the general public. And you basically have the mayor and the president of the university basically can't answer a logical, rational, reasonable, common sense question. That to me signals this is a circus-like environment. Also, I have to tell you, Laura, when you make mistakes early on, that has a cascading impact on the progression as to why we may be here almost day 5. Now, I love Jimmy Gagliano, and I agree with him. Investigations take as much time as they take to properly apprehend and do what we do best. And there should be no haste. But the reality is we may have been in a better position had we not given the all clear and the stand down on Sunday, where the students were basically released to go back home for the holidays. That in and of itself is reprehensible and raises to the level of complete incompetency. Now, again, you have the political leaders that are basically driving the narrative. And you look at the police chief, he's shell-shocked. He doesn't want to be in front of that podium, but he doesn't. But he's there because the mayor is pushing him in front of that podium. And that, to me, is disgraceful and unforgivable. It does a disservice and erodes the confidence that we should all have in our local, state, and federal partners in the law enforcement community.
You know, he's so right. And that's FBI agent Stuart Kaplan. The narrative is being driven by politicians. And what are politicians trying to do? They're trying to do damage control. They just want this to go away. Make this go away. You know, Mayor Smiley, you should go away because it's unforgivable what you are doing and the weakness you are portraying up at that podium because you don't know what you're talking about. And you're trying to do damage control, political damage control, but that's not going to help capture the shooter in this case. What's going to capture this shooter is good investigative techniques, good investigators, and I'll also say this case smells of not enough boots on the ground, not enough investigators. You know, I was spoiled. I came from the NYPD. If they needed 100 detectives, they could call across the city and get 100 detectives to Manhattan within an hour. You know, I don't think the same is potentially true for Rhode Island. I don't think, according to James Gagliano, there's only 500 sworn officers in the Providence Police Department. How many of them are detectives? Obviously, they don't have enough boots on the ground. Get the boots on the ground. Get the state police, right? Get more FBI agents in there. Inexcusable that the students were allowed to go home and not interviewed. Inexcusable that there is no sketch. Inexcusable that there was no video in that room. Inexcusable that the door was propped open, which is indicative of the fact that there was no security on the scene. So in an area where there's potentially, and he can't even come up with an accurate number, 200 to 400 students in a lecture hall. I don't have the exact number because the authorities aren't putting that out there. Shouldn't there be some security, at least close by, maybe not in the lecture hall? Shouldn't security check to make sure the door is not propped open? Because apparently on the Brown University campus, you need a smart card to go from area to area. Well, this guy didn't need a smart card. He knew how to get into that lecture hall, and he created carnage, killed 2 students and shot 9. And in day 6, we don't have this guy. This is back to Fox News.
Yeah, Brian Yanis just interviewed the police chief who confirmed that the Brown University PD car that was referenced in that Q&A late today did not have any dash cam. This is the police car that the suspect walked nearby, and there was no camera in there, which I guess for a campus, maybe that's not unusual. But I want to go back to what Stuart just said, because I do believe, and I wondered the same thing, whether this got political really fast with this mayor who came out and seemed to, I don't want to say he enjoyed the moment. I don't think that's fair. But again, it's not political. This is an investigation. This shouldn't be political. It shouldn't have political implications, but it kind of becomes political when political figures seem to be directing the others to speak. But James, are we being unfair here?
No, I don't think so. And Laura, I'll put my second hat on. I'm a recovering politician. I served 2 terms as the mayor of a small upstate New York village. I understand the need for politicians to gravitate toward the cameras. The problem is it doesn't help. And when you hold press conferences and you have the mayor speak, the provost speak, you have the president of the university speak, then you have a city councilwoman speak, then you bring up the attorney general, it's not advancing the ball. 2 things are going to make this case, Laura: forensics and crowdsourcing, doing exactly what you're doing right now with those still images from the videos. Crowdsourcing and forensics are going to solve this case.
James Gagliano is 100% right. And I mentioned early on, and I hope they're doing this, and I would imagine they are. Let's get those spent shells. Let's swab each and every one of them for DNA. And then let's create an investigative genetic genealogical tree and identify this perpetrator through that means. If we're not getting help, as James Gagliano said, from crowdsourcing, from putting the picture out there and counting on the public to call in and identify this guy, let's use science. Let's use the science of investigative genetic genealogy. That's how the Koberger case was solved. And the Koberger case, if you're not familiar with it, is the person who stabbed 4 Idaho University students to death in their beds on November 13th, 2022. And that perpetrator was caught by leaving touch DNA on a knife sheath that he left behind that was identified and compared to DNA that was surreptitiously removed from the garbage pails of his family bottles, and it matched his father. And that's how they knew that it belonged to him. And once they were able to swab Brian Koberger and compare it against the DNA on the knife sheath, they had a match that was much even closer than his father's DNA. So will science solve this? We certainly hope so. We hope they use every trick in the investigative bag to capture this guy, because as of yet, they do not have him. Back to Fox News. I think these guys are great.
Stuart, people were, looking at the police kicking around the snow there. But I mean, that's what they have to do. I mean, time did pass and snow fell. So they're having to look through the snow to find, I guess, shreds of any information. That's not unusual.
Well, no, it's not unusual. And look, Laura, they're desperate. They need the public's help. But let me go back to a point with respect to whether it's a pistol or a long gun. And James would understand this. Generally, the magazines that would be left behind would be easily connectable to whether or not it was a pistol or a long gun. The nonsense, we don't know or we don't want to tell, that in and of itself is ridiculous. And again, it erodes the confidence that we should have in this police department.
They knew the caliber of weapon within an hour of the shooting, did they not, James? I mean, they know it right away. It's not a mystery what kind of gun it was, or at least the caliber of the bullet.
Well, the fog of war. So we know that there were some interviews of some of the students and a teacher's aide immediately afterwards, and there were some conflicting things, and that's normal. Would it be helpful to put out what type of weapon that we believe that it is? Sure. But if it's a revolver, the shell casings don't come out, so they may not have anything there. So I think they know a lot more, obviously, than they're letting out, but I just don't think they need to do these multiple press conferences. It's not helping advancing the ball.
No. Post it online, show the photo everywhere. I think that does a lot more than having CYA press conferences. James, Stuart.
So they're so right, although I don't, there's no way, I don't think there's any way in this world that this shooter used a revolver, because what that would entail would be to every 6 shots reload. And apparently he fired 40 shots. That's what we're hearing. And the fact that we're not hearing initial reports were that one of the witnesses said, the teaching assistant said it was a long gun. Could he have said that? Maybe he doesn't know much about firearms. Could he have said that and be mistaken? Absolutely. But the ballistics left behind, and I don't agree with James Gagliano that the shooter could have possibly used the revolver, because A semi-automatic can come with a magazine, a large capacity magazine that could be 32 or 40 rounds, right? And that's what these shooters will use. They're not going to shoot a revolver. So the new information we have today, of course, is this person, and I can't say person of interest, but person that they're putting out there that they want to speak to. They definitely want to speak to this person. He's been identified as being in the vicinity of the shooter when this occurred, but we don't know. They're not telling us why they really want to speak to him. Could he be an accomplice? Well, if he's an accomplice, we haven't heard that from any of the witnesses about the shooter having an accomplice. So, but could he be? Yes. But again, in these press conferences, they're telling us very little. And I agree with James Gagliano and Stuart Kaplan that they need to stop doing these feel-goody two shoes, make the mayor look good, make him concerned, let the people know that he's earning his paycheck. Doesn't help because he doesn't make anyone feel at ease. What will make people feel at ease is seeing this rotund guy in handcuffs. That's what will make people feel at ease, not the mayor coming up on the screen every day and talking smack. And we also realize sometimes these people in high positions, when they speak in front of the public, they're outed as incompetence. That college president is an absolute boob. She couldn't answer regular questions. Is she Dr. So-and-so? You know, just shows you the value of a PhD these days. Means absolutely nothing. She couldn't answer elementary questions about the school, about how many people were in that lecture hall. Why is there no cameras there? She couldn't answer all of that. And when she was questioned about then scrubbing the website of a potential anarchist on their campus, she had no idea whatsoever. That's either smelling of ridiculous politics or she's a liar, you know? And, you know, welcome to the world, because this incident has put Brown University on the map. This little postage stamp Ivy League school has put them on the map in regards to this horrible incident, in regards to 2 students being shot and 9 being wounded in a shooting on a place that's supposed to be safe, an Ivy League campus. And guess what? It's not safe because someone came on your campus and failures in security, right? And I'm not saying, you know, most college security, security are the eyes and ears. They're not expected to do anything. Most of the time, they're really just like scarecrows. You know, they stand there and they report, but they don't do anything. They don't take action. And, you know, I would just like to mention also, you know, people saying now, oh, we need better security. We need more cameras. On any other day of the week, if this didn't happen, they'd say, oh, Big Brother's watching us. And they would talk out against the security cameras. It's an invasion of our privacy, which you frequently hear. But when an atrocity like this happens and students get shot, students get killed, all of a sudden everyone's wondering, oh, the security was horrible. Why aren't there more security cameras around? This isn't right, you know. But you know something? You can't have it both ways. You either want safety or you either want total transparency where no one can see the students walking around. Your privacy isn't invaded. So, as I said, you can't have it both ways. Again, this is another report from Fox, which did a good job reporting this.
Too well about these sorts of searches and investigations. One of the things that he has mentioned is the jacket that this person in this image is wearing that he believes could be significant potentially in tracking this person down. Former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis led the city's response to the horrific 2013 marathon bombing and served in law enforcement for 35 years. Ed, it's good to have you with us. Obviously, this is such a tragedy in this pre-holiday period for the families who have lost these 2 young, promising students, and also for those families who are so devastated and concerned about their young ones who are in the hospital and hoping that they're going to recover. As you look at this search and you see this second image now of another individual, and you think back to looking for the Tsarnaev brothers, remember the younger brother was finally discovered in a boat, hiding in a boat. What are you thinking about as you watch this case unfold, Ed?
Hi, Martha. It does bring back a lot of bad memories of that terrible week here in Boston. You know, this new photograph that's come out could be a photograph of a witness. It could be a photograph of of an accomplice. It's hard to tell exactly by looking at it. But what I think about is the fact that there are hundreds of investigators out there going through millions of bytes of information, digital information, in downloaded camera footage, and it might take a while to sort through all of that stuff.
This guy, his name is Ed Davis, and he was the police commissioner of Boston when the Boston Marathon bombings happened. And he's a very competent guy. And that investigation was, you know, we got to catch these guys yesterday. You know, even worse, people lost their legs, people were killed. And this was a terrorist act with, you know, backpacks left behind with bombs inside the backpacks. And the perpetrators were identified much in the way they're trying to identify this shooter through social media and through cell phone video, that people that were watching the marathon took cell phone video. And that's how the Tsarnaev brothers were identified. Tamerlan and Zokhar Tsarnaev. They were Russians. One of them was trained in Uzbekistan, I believe it was, in a terrorist camp. And the FBI knew of them. They were on the FBI's radar. And when they were first identifying, this Boston police chief, police commissioner chief, Ed Davis, said, put the video of them out there. Let's use the community to identify them. And the FBI disagreed with him and said, no, don't do it. And he said, well, I'm the, I don't know if it came to, I'm sure they were butting heads behind the scenes. He said, I'm the police commissioner, I'm going to do it. And he was overruled by some politician. And I think you can directly equate the fact that a campus police officer who didn't know who the Tsarnaev brothers were killed him. They murdered him. Perhaps if they were identified, he would have had a better heads up and seeing them in a car close by. They were carjacking vehicles. And, you know, just so folks that don't know about the Boston Marathon bombing, before they were encountered by a small town police department in Massachusetts called the Watertown Police, and one of the most crazy gunfights. And actually, the Tsarnaev brothers were throwing IEDs at the police. And I mentioned this the other, Sergeant Jim McClellan, a hero in my book. He was one of many Watertown police that shot it out with the Tsarnaev brothers. They were able to kill the oldest brother on the scene with an assist from his younger brother, who ran him over with a car. That did the coup de grace. But they had shot him numerous times, and I believe he had body armor on. He survived for a while. And then the younger brother was caught, of course, days later. But they were heading to New York City to do more carnage in New York City in the Times Square area before they were caught. So these investigations, and someone questioned before, how come we haven't found out, as was reported by a couple of witnesses early on in this investigation, what the shooter yelled as he was firing the gun? It was reported that he yelled something. And I'm not going to suggest what it was because I don't know what it was. But why is that not being put out there? Could that be part of political correctness? Could that be part of Brown University trying to protect their reputation or protect a segment of the population? That's an investigative tool. That is also gives us motive in regards to this. So I think they should put that out there. This is Ed Davis again.
We are seeing promising leads. You mentioned the jacket. I think that's a very good lead that detectives will be running down. And the other thing is, if you know this person, you are going to recognize him. And that's why I think that this will be solved.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Number one, we know that any piece of information, like a jacket, can be cross-referenced, especially now with AI, figuring out, what brand is this jacket? What are the stores that sell it? Chasing down those records in all of the local areas to see if perhaps they can identify who bought that jacket. And on the other hand, and I remember,
That sounds like a long shot, but I had mentioned that the other day. This jacket is like a two-tone jacket, black in the rear and brown or green in the front. It's difficult to see exactly what color with different light hits it a different way. It looks brown, it looks green. But a brand name. There have perpetrators caught in New York City, major investigations through canvassing stores that sell this and showing them the stills, the stores actually, of the person of interest. How about checking Amazon to see how many people ordered that type of jacket off of Amazon in the vicinity, in this area? I mean, you can't do the whole world. You'd never solve this. And I would say this guy's fat. He's got a big gut. So it'd have to be an extra large jacket. So you could say, give me the extra large jackets of this brand name, of this color. And potentially, look, they discovered again in the Idaho 4 murders with Brian Koberger that he ordered some things online. He ordered the K-bar knife online. He ordered the sheath online. And that's some of the investigative evidence they got against him. So people may be shaking their heads and say, oh, that doesn't make any. No, it does make sense. They potentially could identify him through that. Let's go back to Ed Davis here from
I remember
Boston
feeling
Police.
this way when we watched the hunt for the Tsarnaev brothers, that there were individuals out there who knew who these people were. What is your hunch about this, about whether or not somebody is about to come forward?
Well, that's a very good point, Martha. And I think what people have to remember is as soon as we released those photographs, their friends recognized them, but they were afraid to say anything. And in some cases, they even tried to cover up for them. They destroyed evidence. They went to their homes and destroyed evidence. So I think what you have to remember, if you're acquainted with this man, is there are serious ramifications if you don't do the right thing. And it's not time to be concerned about the shooter. It's time to be concerned about the victims' families and the whole community that's been affected by this, especially around Christmas. It's just horrible.
Absolutely. Ed Davis, thank you very much. Good to have
He's great. He's really a great police professional. He did an outstanding job in the Boston Marathon case. And he's very steady, very calm. I think that's what you really need in a police chief, I'm a little bit more excitable, but he's very calm. He's very measured. He's very knowledgeable. And that's what you want. That I think we're lacking a little bit in this case is we're lacking the sense of competence here. And someone was standing up for the mayor in the chat. I can't find it right now, but look, you may like the mayor, but he's not doing a good job here, right? He shouldn't be calling press conferences every day to, get his face time and really not saying much. And you really need, when they get new investigative leads, for the police department, the FBI, them to be the messengers in this case, not the politicians. And I'll repeat that. And I if you like this mayor, that's fine. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but he's not doing investigation 101, which is to show competence, to show evidence that you have out there, to assure the public that you're working on it. I don't think you can assure the public right now that they're not in any danger. The shooter's still out there, right? So you're going to say, oh, there's absolutely no danger. Well, if you say that, you're lying, because there is danger that he could come back. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. We are sponsored by FanDuel on the Believe Network. And now a word from our sponsor. FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss this NFL season. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, Bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style, FanDuel has you covered. The NFL season is here. The only question is, are you ready to play? You must be 21 years or older and present in select states for Kansas and affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbookfanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE New York or text HOPE New York in New York. Folks, this is from News Nation.
Secret Service and former director of security at Missouri School District. He's now a chief strategy officer with M6 Global Defense and an expert on high-tech school security systems. And of course, Chris Wecker is the former assistant director of the FBI who served 24 years with the Bureau. He's an expert in security assessments. Great to have you both. Chris, so let's get to this man, this picture of this man that they released today that police think encountered their person of interest, crossed paths with him, saw him up close. This could be crucial because it could be the first person who might be able to tell us what the suspect looks like.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time. I mean, they've been disclosing more and more details from the videos and other parts of the investigation. And they obviously are stumped. They need help from the general public. And in this case, it was only a matter of time before they started asking about people who may have come in proximity with that primary person of interest, as they describe him. I only think of them as suspects. So, that it's a logical thing to do.
Right.
That face is, somebody will recognize that face. I also saw cars go by him. So, the next thing you're going to do is put out the description of the car and say, anyone who drove by in this car, we want you to call in, or somebody identify this car. So I think we're going to see more and more of that, where we're sort of one step removed from the suspect, and they're putting out as much detail as they can to get help from the public. And this won't be the first. This wasn't the first time. Won't be the last time that law enforcement enlists the help of the general public to solve the crime.
Yeah, but this is a very, very high-profile crime and a very high-profile manhunt underway. The question would be why people who may have seen this man haven't already called in. But Chris, police also today said he was casing the area near the shooting now for 5.5 hours beforehand, even longer than the time frame they revealed yesterday.
That's some of the questions that I had. And it's not just canvassing the area the hours before the shooting, but how about canvassing going back 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I believe Ring cameras only keep the images for 30 days. Could he have been what we call in law enforcement as reconning? Could he have been reconning, doing a dry run to that building, checking out his access points and his exit points, his escape route, if you will? Yes, well, that's possible. Therefore, does the Providence police and do the FBI and the campus security, I think they're really just square badges. I don't think they're going to be useful for this stuff. But the Providence police and the FBI, do they have enough boots on the ground to do these canvasses going back 2 to 3 weeks? After a while, when you return to the same location and say, oh, could we go look at your camera going back 2 or 3 weeks? People start to get annoyed, believe it or not, right? And hopefully they'll take it seriously and realize 2 students were murdered and 9 students were shot, and the gunman is still out there. So your video, even though you do own it, it could help in this investigation and potentially solve this case, So I hope they think of that, of going back, because there's no doubt in my mind that this shooter didn't just show up on the day of the shooting. He reconned. And this shooting to me says that it was targeted. This wasn't a random, oh, let me go on campus and shoot up a lecture hall. I believe that this lecture hall, this university was targeted, perhaps because this shooter considered it to be a soft target, an easy target, that he wouldn't have any opposition. And, when you have security guards that aren't doing their job, for example, in this case, allowing the door to this lecture hall with reports are there was as many as 200 students in there, to allow that door to be propped open, that's a violation of Security 101. Protect assets and reduce risks. That is the job of security. And when someone props open a door, that defeats all security members and measures, it defeats all security measures. And when this old building, it's described as, doesn't have video, what excuse does Brown University have for that? Is there an excuse for that? No, there is no excuse. Someone has to pay for this, whether it's the director of security or the president of this college. 2 students were murdered. 9 were shot. Lacks security. Security is not a joke. It's not something to be taken lightly. And the thing is, if you know anything about security and policing, the first thing to go when a university or any company has to cut costs is security. Let's cut security. We could save some money. We don't need security, Back to News Nation.
What does that tell you, that he would spend 5.5 hours walking through that neighborhood, casing the area first?
Yeah, I mean, that's not unusual. I mean, I worked bank robberies for quite a while, and that's what they do. They case the area, they walk around, they drive around, they get a good look at things. This area was right on the fringe of the campus, so it may be that he didn't want to get too deep into the campus because it's hard to escape from an area deep into the campus. So he wanted to hit on the fringe of a campus, and he was just trying to see if there was something.
But deep into the campus doesn't really apply at Brown. It's a 1/4 mile square. So how deep are you going to get into the campus? And I don't mean to question this FBI former boss, but how deep can you go when a school is a 1/4 mile square?
Going on a Saturday, were there classes going on, what buildings were occupied and that sort of thing, and then mapping out his escape routes.
Yeah, the whole question I have in all of this is, how did he know that, that was a Saturday afternoon. There aren't normally classes on Saturday afternoons. This was a study session because it was finals, and it was this finals, special session that these kids were all in that classroom. How did he know they would be there? Tim, as you just heard from our coverage from Jessica, people are really frustrated by the fact that there weren't security cameras in and around that classroom where the shooting happened. Is that frustration valid here? Brown University is a wealthy university with an endowment of more than $7 million. Why weren't there more security cameras?
I think she's wrong. I think it's 8 billion with a B, not with an M. It's 8 billion with a B.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Elizabeth. And that's a great question. I could feel the frustration, and I'm frustrated myself because again and again we have the same conversation every time there's a situation like this. And you have to look at the individuals that are putting security plans into place, and they have to be good stewards of the technology provided to them, the equipment, the technology, and everything in place. And something like this could be as simple as testing your cameras and seeing what the holes are, the vulnerabilities, by doing an annual site assessment, a quarterly site assessment, whatever it is. And besides the cameras, reports that I've heard is the campus notification system was inoperable as well, the intercoms to notify other students. So I think there's, as we look deeper into this, it's not only the cameras, it's other technology that maybe wasn't tended to properly to provide proper notification.
Yeah, the school addressed that. They said they did not sound the siren because the siren is a signal to students to run into buildings for safety. They didn't want students running into a building where a shooting had just taken place. The school has spoken out about that. They said it was all working fine. They just didn't sound it and gave their reasoning for it. But Chris, I'm curious, getting back to the security camera aspect of this, we have all this footage, hours and hours of footage of this person of interest walking around this neighborhood before the shooting. Why is there so little after the shooting? What does that tell you?
Yeah, well, again, that's probably why he was casing that area. He seemed to me to be looking at houses to see where cameras were, because he was looking up and looking around. He had his head on a swivel as he walked around. So, and that could be one of the reasons for his moving around the neighborhood the way he did, is just to find a way to leave there without being captured on a camera.
Right.
So, we see him one time with that sling on his, that kind of pack on his body, and then we see him another time without it. That tells me he had a car nearby, or he was staying nearby. But I think it's more likely that he had a car nearby and he was going back and forth to the car, sort of as a base of operation.
Great point. He had to have gotten to the campus some way, right? And I don't think he would have exposed himself by taking an Uber, perhaps public transportation. But I would think, in this retired FBI boss is absolutely correct, he must have had a car, because at some point also, the video of him escaping, his escape route, abruptly ends. Is that where he got into the car? Where was the last position, the last spot where video caught an image of him? That's what I would like to know. What spot was that? And that may be the spot where he got into a car. So what do we also want to look at? We want to look at license plate readers, right? Although we don't have, but we could run all the license plates that were in the vicinity or came on, if they have license plate readers on or in the vicinity of Brown University campus. All of these investigative resources, very tedious, takes a lot of time. They must be done. You must by the numbers. You must do every investigative step. And one of the things that I noticed on this case, and I'm going to say it, I don't think they had enough direction and supervision. You can't allow detectives to run an investigation. You have to have a detective boss that is running the investigation and giving direction to the detectives, because or else they'll do what they want to do. And like many other employees in other fields, they will take the path of least resistance and do the things that are the most fun to do instead of the things that are most difficult to do. And some of the most difficult and tedious things to do is to collect video from people's homes. Could take hours and hours and hours and hours. So I question who was running this investigation, and not just the chief of Providence. You need sergeants, lieutenants, captains out in the field directing. And then there has to be a centralized location, either a temporary headquarters or a headquarters area where all the information is coming into and shared with all the investigators. Part of good investigation, policing has 3 shifts usually, 8 to 4, 4 to 12, and midnight to 8, except in cases like this, no one goes home and you throw that out the door. But maybe you'll have 2 shifts now, 8 to 8 and 8 to 8 at nighttime. 8 to 8 o'clock in the morning, 0800 by 2000, by 0800 by 2000, and 2000 by 0800. And then, but when every new shift comes in, you must brief the new shift on everything you got, what you're looking for, what you found out, what you don't know, what we want to accomplish, tips. You need a boss or a competent detective just to run the tips log and make sure that you find, for every tip, you find a complaint follow-up. That means that every person that gave the tip as in person, face-to-face interviewed by a detective. all these things may sound tedious. They are tedious, but they are so important to the investigation.
We need to find that car.
Sure do. Tim, super quick. We have a lot of questions about what kind of gun he used. Police believe he used a 9mm. There were a lot of questions about whether or not he used a long gun, because one of the teaching assistants in that classroom said he thought he saw him with a long gun. Talk for a second about the unreliability sometimes of eyewitness testimony in these chaotic, terrifying moments of a mass shooting. They were very careful to say, we don't want to talk about what kind of gun it is because we don't want to contaminate what our eyewitnesses will tell us. But we all know that drill. You know, people in a chaotic mass event will all see something different when asked afterward.
Yeah, absolutely. The human mind it plays tricks on you. You know, we typically use the frontal lobe of our brain, but in fight, flight, or freeze, you use the primitive part of your brain, which goes to fear and just basic human survival. So therefore, you're not thinking rationally or logically at times.
Yeah. All right. Which might explain why we're getting differing accounts from the eyewitnesses thus far. All right. Tim Rubel.
You know, so from the chat, MNMKM, the mayor said witnesses who heard Alu Akbar were wrong, but even if they were right, it isn't relevant motive or a political statement. It is 1000% relevant. I don't know where you could say that, because then we know that it's a potential political statement. We know that it could be a terrorist act. So for you to say that, or the mayor say that, it's absolutely outrageous. No, that is totally 1000% relevant. And the fact that they're not putting out there makes me think that they're hiding something. And I think they are hiding something. If he actually said that, and I don't believe the mayor. Look, I would like to speak to the person who said they heard him say that, or the persons. There's probably more than one person. So to say that that doesn't mean anything, no, it absolutely means everything to motive. Because was he targeting the one victim who was the head of the Brown University Republican Club? That's a possibility, right? Was this a terrorist act? That opens up another Pandora's box of possibilities. If it was a terrorist act, who was behind this? Was someone supporting this individual? All of those things are very relevant. So for you to say that there's no relevance, you're being brainwashed by these, these politicians that don't want that to be, because that opens up another Pandora's box of information that they don't want out there. This is from the press conference yesterday.
Released this enhanced photo earlier today, and I want to be clear that this is a person that we would like to speak with. We truly believe, based on the video footage that we have been watching for a few days, that may have relevant information to the investigation. So we're asking the public that you can help us identify who this individual is, as well as the individual themselves sees their picture, to please contact the police department. As far as one thing that I want to mention, I want to urge you, the public, not to rely on or circulate AI generated images that are currently being shared on social media, as they're not verified or credible. As well, the updates and information that you're getting will be provided exclusively through this department's official channels. I want to make sure that we make that happen, and please notify the public to make sure that that occurs. I would also like to clarify and show a map. Please, if you can play the map. So the map here that you see is actually a map of the area that we have been intensively walking on those streets, canvassing the area. So as you see the blue image, yesterday I mentioned that we need the public's assistance to check their camera systems or any sort of video that you may have that could be helpful to us, that you, as you're watching it or as you're reviewing it, you feel there may be something that we can use, please notify us. And if you need any help with that, viewing those videos, please also call us. We can come over and help you. The green area, that's color, that's when we have confirmed where the subject was prior to the shooting. The red areas, we have also confirmed that that's the immediate area where he left after the shooting. And so this is the map that actually we have so far. We've walked it all. We're still actively investigating, and we're still actively having agents, Providence police officers, members of the state police. There's about 9 federal agencies that are assisting us with this investigation, adding the state police as well as the Providence police and other municipalities. Again, I would like to reiterate, if you have any tips, please call the 272-3121 or the FBI link at fbi.gov/Brown University shooting. Thank you.
You know, I just want to mention something. It's been brought up that something was yelled. I believe it was, and I saw this early on in the investigation. It was the teacher's assistant who said he looked the shooter right in the eye. I believe, and I could be wrong, because when it wasn't followed up, and I wondered why, but I believe it was the teacher's assistant that said he yelled that phrase that I'm not going to publish because I don't know if it's true or not, but he yelled something out. Now, if in fact he did yell that out, and if they're suppressing that, that's a disgrace, because that does show motive, and it does show a potential terrorism act, and it should be out there, you know. And if the school is suppressing that, that's even more disgraceful. And someone also asked in the chat, if it is an act of terrorism, could the FBI take over this investigation? The answer to that is yes. Apparently, James Gagliano said that today, that if it is an act of terrorism, the FBI can take over this whole investigation. So yeah, look, I don't want to put anything out there that's not true, but I also don't want to assist anyone in suppressing evidence, because it's clear in this case, they clearly don't want certain things out there. And some of the things they don't want out there, of course, is the incompetence of the security at Brown University, because what that equals is lawsuits. That equals people getting sued. But lives are at stake here. So I think you should improve your security, if anything, and not try to hide behind the potential incompetence.
Attorney General Peter Nerona for an update. Okay. Thank you, General.
So this is from yesterday's press conference.
One additional update from me, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. First, I want to just take a moment to recognize and honor the memory of Ella Cook and Muhammad Aziz Umerzakov, who are the 2 deceased victims from this tragedy, and update you on the status of the survivors. Yesterday, we mentioned that one individual had been discharged. I'm happy to report that another individual has been discharged today. That leaves 1 survivor in critical but stable condition and 5 in stable conditions. The parents that I spoke with today all reported that their kids were improving. So this is a happy announcement. But I know the entire Providence community, the entire state of Rhode Island, the governor and I were together at a memorial service last night, mourn the loss and offer our most sincere condolences to the Cook and Umerzakov families. Following up on a note that the colonel made with respect to AI-generated images and other misinformation, we have created an online folder with all of the video and images that have been released. And we encourage both members of the press, but also members of the community. We know lots of people are sharing information, and we appreciate that. We think that will help with this investigation. But we encourage them to download and share the videos and photos from the website that has been created, so that you can ensure that you're sharing an accurate and verified photo and video. That website is now live. It is providenceri.gov/tips, TIPS. providenceri.gov/tips is an online file folder that has the videos and photos that have been released to date, and it will be updated as we progress. There's been lots of conversation up here about the heroic work of the hundreds of law enforcement professionals who remain hard at work 24 hours a day and who are, in fact, making progress. I want to close with one additional thank you tonight. All of those tip line calls are coming into the city's telecommunications department, the same folks who answer the 911 calls.
I just want to address someone from the chat. Bob at BobMark5921. I'm not being disrespectful, but hosts should be careful when spreading false rumors. This is also what they may have said. You know something, Bob Mark? I am not spreading false rumors. First of all, this investigation is indicative of this university hiding numerous facts. And some of the things they're hiding are, what was the caliber gun? What type of gun was it? Why aren't they telling us that, right? Was it a long gun or was it a semi-automatic pistol? How many spent shells have they recovered? That's not out there. Why aren't they reporting that? So I'm not spreading false information. It was reported in the news, not by me, that something was yelled by the shooter. Someone put that in the chat today. I have never reported what was yelled. I said it was reported by witnesses. And all of a sudden now the witnesses are recanting that they said that. So I'm suspicious of that. So if you think I'm being disrespectful, that's too bad. I'm a real cop, right? I did 27 years with the NYPD. I've been shot at, all right? I did hundreds of homicide investigations, major investigations, shootings. So please don't disparage me with that stupid remark.
And they too have been working tirelessly. And I want to thank the men and women at dispatch and at telecommunications for their diligence. Everyone in the city of Providence truly has a role to play in this investigation, and we're grateful for their assistance. We'll take your questions. John.
Colonel, I have a question for Colonel Jones regarding the map. As he's walking around, I want to establish actually, what's the earliest that this person of interest emerges? I believe you had said Saturday morning at 10:30, but then someone else said maybe a couple days earlier. And I recognize that it fluctuates and this is evolving. But as of right now, what's the earliest that this individual, to your knowledge, shows up on a camera?
About 10:30 a.m. on the date of this tragic incident. However, so like anything else, I also mentioned yesterday that they do case the areas. They do a lot of prior checking for their crime, and so we truly believe that it could be that possibly it was there prior as well. And so we want to make sure that we don't miss anything. And so that's why we're asking the public to help us to ensure within that map area that I mentioned with the borders between Wicked, Brook, all those areas, Gano, that if you have a camera system to reach out to us.
I was along Hyde Street, Gano today. Tremendous number of federal officials literally going door to door. Would you say this? How would you try? I mean, it just seems that this is probably right now the most massive, intensive manhunt going on in the world.
I think I agree with you on that, John, and definitely commend the men and women, obviously, and all our federal partners. It's a lot of work and it's intense, as you stated. It takes a lot to be able to knock on doors, see videos. There's terabytes of videos that you have to look. And I mentioned it yesterday. We're looking for a moment that takes almost less than a second. And if you miss it, you're missing something that could be critical and important for us to use. And so, yes, it's definitely.
So this is from yesterday's press conference. And you know something, I have nothing but respect for these police and these FBI agencies, investigators that are working this. I don't have a lot of respect for politicians, all right, because they have agendas and they shouldn't be the ones leading these press conferences. It should be law enforcement, right? But they want their camera time. They want their face time. And if you can't see that, then you're missing the point. And they want to do damage control. And that's what they're attempting to do. Folks, this show is sponsored by FanDuel, Police Off the Cuff, sponsored by FanDuel on the Believe Network, who puts out the odds for the Super Bowl. FanDuel, Super Bowl 60 winner. Bills plus 500, Chiefs plus 700, Packers plus 750, Lions plus 900, Eagles plus 1,000, Rams plus 1,600. That's FanDuel sponsoring the Police Off the Cuff podcast. Folks, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. And, you know, if I get heated sometimes, and I'm very passionate about this stuff. And I know what goes on in investigations, and I know what goes on in politics. And there's a lot of politics in this investigation. And it hasn't just been said by me. It's been said by FBI agents, who were on the scene. It's been said by some of the news reporters. And if anything in this case, what has been very unprofessional is the messaging that's going out there. And I played this the other day, and this is very interesting. And I agree 100% with this former FBI agent. Just listen to what he has to say here.
Movement and apparent familiarity with the campus there suggests to you?
Well, it tells me, first of all, first and foremost, I believe that the national police associations across this country need to come up with a standardized way they brief the public, because this nonsense that they're doing reflects New Orleans last year or on New Year's. They're confusing. They do not fill the public with confidence, and they really don't know how to use the public to get the clues that they need to solve this puzzle. So that, with that being said, I believe that there's been so much focus on cameras or keypads or key cards that people have stopped looking at the evidence that we have, the totality of what we have. And so when we look at these videos, what we see are a couple things. We see a person with a unique look and gait in the way that they walk, not that unique, but the way that they stand with their arms behind their back. Most people do not stand like that when they're waiting and just looking around, like this right here that you're seeing. Secondly, what is that individual looking at that point? Is he waiting on somebody to get in that building? Because it was a Saturday in a school, which is not a typical soft target. It wasn't a food court where it was packed, and it wasn't a special event. So who is it that has knowledge about the people or that place? That is going to be a very limited number also, because it was an engineering building. So in that meeting that was going on, but that individual, from what I can tell, was calm and was making their way to that specific place. So who would have known that they were in there, and who knows the people that are there? That is, I think, the key that we need to start focusing on. So if people know them, then they need to start thinking about who could have done this that knows them.
I think it's really difficult for any of us to get in the mind of a madman, but if he wanted to cause the most carnage, he would have probably not chosen a Saturday to do this in this particular building. It would have been, you know, a time when in the quad or something, when there are all sorts of kids around, like you said. Brown University's president is staying defiant over security lapses. She's been criticized about that. Here's what she had to say. Listen.
We understand that as time goes on, there is maybe a natural instinct to assign responsibility for a tragic event like this. Anxiety and fear is very natural, but the shooter is responsible.
Right. I mean, we always look for somebody to blame, and these things, you know, they're so prevalent. It's not like this is a one-off here. We're reporting on violence at schools, gun violence at schools, almost on a weekly basis, it seems like. So she says the school bears no responsibility at all. Where does the accountability typically fall when security protocols fail, leadership, law enforcement, or lazy culture to check up on these things?
Well, I wrote a book about this called Sheep Know More: The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. And it looks at things from the attacker's point of view. And that's the reality, is where all these things typically come into play. So Elizabeth Smart, for instance, bless her heart, and bless her mom's heart, her mom left a window open because she burnt something in the kitchen, and that's how the kidnapper got in, right? So these things occur. And I don't think right now at this point, because the press is asking questions, that they're placing blame. They're wanting to know how he got in there and why we don't have video footage of it. That's what they're trying to find out. But I think, again, and I go back to the fact that there are clues here. The public does have clues. Why did this individual have a satchel or a sling bag on, and in minutes later video has no sling bag? So where was that sling bag that this individual had on? Yeah, and do they know somebody who's typical of wearing a sling bag? So I believe this person is known. I believe this person by somebody. I believe they are familiar with that school and with that particular building and group, whether it was they had a vendetta against somebody in there or against a group. We don't even know, Anna, at this point, what the meeting was that was going on in there. Was it a class? Was it a special group? We don't know that. And we need to know those things so people can help the police in finding it. And just one other thing, this whole thing about how the excuse they gave last night about how they go quadrant to quadrant to look for cameras, it's not that big of a community. They could have gone house to house in 30, at least in 3 hours.
Thank you for watching.
So that's a good point of view he has there, experienced point of view. There's a lot of questions, and I believe to put a positive spin on this, I think the shooter will be arrested, right? In spite of all the politics and all the non-transparency by Brown University. I have another big question. $50,000 has been put up as a reward to the arrest and conviction of the shooter by the FBI. Why hasn't Brown University put up any money? With their $8 billion endowment, they can't spare $50,000 or $100,000. Believe me, money makes people talk. When you put up a reward, people that may know this guy or consider him to be their friend, there's no more loyalty once you start putting up money. And I think that's what the university should do also. And the university has to be transparent, because they're obviously not very transparent. And whoever did this, whether it's from whatever group it's from, or if it's a single one-off, that's what should be reported. We shouldn't hold back information because it's politically incorrect, And I'm not trying to take a political position, but I'm also trying to point out that there may be politics here in regards to why the truth is not being reported here by the university. Folks, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, like us, share us, make lots of comments. And if you want to contribute financially to the Police Off the Cuff show, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels, and we have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. And you can contribute that way. Folks, as new information comes in, and the new information, of course, today was this individual who really the police want to talk to. He's not named as a suspect. He's I sort of don't like that term, person of interest. I'll talk to him. What does he know? Is he a witness? Is he a suspect? That's all there is. There's no earth-shattering new information. So, folks, again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. And as new information comes in, hopefully the next thing we'll hopefully be reporting very soon that there's been an arrest. But there hasn't been an arrest yet. But I'd like to report that. I'd like to finish off before the Christmas holiday that someone has been arrested in this case. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Have a great day. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And have a great day, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.